pit blade works.
What is up, you guys? It's Silver Fang, and today I'm back with another video. So today I'm gonna be covering Spartacus, and I have a lot to say about this guy. But before we get started with all of that, I want to let you guys something that I found was really wrong with my channel, as I didn't know how to completely manage the statistics part of being a YouTuber. But once I looked into it and see how it worked, I found out something was really wrong with the channel, and it's that it's crazy. 82.9% of the people who watch my videos don't subscribe, and I felt kinda like my channel was growing a little slow based on the views I was getting, and that's the reason. So I don't think that is because they don't find my videos to be good. I think they just forget to subscribe because they keep coming back. So please hit that subscribe button. Please subscribe to the channel. It'll really help me out a lot, and it'll help me grow, keep me motivated. So please, if you like my content, if you like Fate, hit that subscribe button. Next thing is, if you want to know how I'm doing in the Fate Grand Order video, go follow me on my Instagram. I've been posting almost everything I do in the game. So that's from formations, ascensions, missions, all of that I've been posting it. So please help me reach my goal of 300 subscribers. That way I can release that Karna video that I promised you guys. So please help me out, 300 subs, and I will really appreciate it. So with that being said, let's get into Spartacus. This is funny. So I don't know if you guys have, but I've certainly watched the Spartacus series that I think was from Stars. I think it's Stars made it. So yeah, I watched that series, and so based on that, I had like this image of Spartacus in my head, right? The same thing with Leonidas. Watching the movie 300 and whatnot, you kind of have this image of this guy in your head. Turns out that he's nothing like that character. I mean, yes, he's ruthless when he's in battle, but his personality is nothing like his personality outside of combat is nothing like those movies, right? So this guy's can't hold his liquor. It's like a workout, this guy's working out 24/7. It's kind of more like a funny personality more than what you would expect. I would expect Leonidas to have some along the lines of a Vegeta personality, right? So, but no, he's like a really funny character, which in turn I think I wouldn't say made me like him even more, but it's good to see a different side of what it is you're expecting, right? So yeah, the same thing happened with Spartacus, right? I had this vision that was created from watching that series, and when I finally saw him as a servant, he was nothing. And grant you, he was summoned as a berserker, meaning that his mind gets fucked up because of the mad enhancement. But I was not expecting him to be that crazy. So that was certainly a shock, to be honest. But hopefully, and this is my hope for this video, because I didn't like the Spartacus from Fate Apocrypha at all, but my hope for this video is that he mentioned something along the lines of Spartacus being able to be summoned as a saber, I would say, because as you probably know, Spartacus does fight with a sword and it's his main weapon. I think I've seen him in the show use the bow here and there, but it's like a rare occasion. But that could maybe be summoned as a. I seen him use a spear though, like, so maybe he could be summoned as a lancer. But like, this guy's a gladiator, so he should be able to be summoned as a freaking saber, a lancer, maybe even a rider, maybe even a rider. So hopefully he mentions something along those lines, and hopefully in the future I get to see some more of that, just because like Spartacus, man, like I had this image of this guy in my head and he was nothing like what I thought he was gonna be. So yeah, it was kind of disappointing, but it was entertaining nonetheless, just because like it added like some sense of comedy to Apocrypha. I mean, Apocrypha was kind of decent when it came to the comedy. I wouldn't say it was the best, but I think Spartacus had like this little touch of comedy that I'm pretty sure that's what they were going for. So when it comes to that, he did accomplish that, but as to what I was expecting, it wasn't nothing close. So yeah, like that was insane. So hopefully he does mention something about he being able to be summoned as other classes. And let's check out the video, because I don't remember his abilities all that well. I know he can like explode in something like some rage mode explosion or whatnot, but yeah, that's all I remember about him. So let's check out the video and see what Any News has to say about this.
To be honest, I didn't think we'd get to this point. I went from doing pretty much one servant a month to once a week, and here we are 6 months and 15 episodes later with The Last Servant and Fate Apocrypha.
Wow.
I don't know what you're thinking. I see this in the comments a lot. Since this is The Last Servant, do I plan to continue this series with another Fate? And the answer is yes. Yes, I do. Fate Extra will be next, but I think I might mix in some Fate Stay Night Servants here and there, sort of like a special type of video in between. But I owe you guys updated videos on both Ruler and Rider, since those were very incomplete and quite shit if I'm being honest. So maybe I'll put those out before the first Fate Extra pull, but we'll see. That's enough sidetracking. We've oppressed this servant for far too long, and if we know anything about him already, it's that he hates being oppressed. So let's dive straight into the lore of Fate Apocrypha's Berserker of Red, or like Cake likes to call him, Pretty Boy Spartacus, the strongest gladiator. Little is known about where he is from, other than that he was believed to be born in Thrace. It is also believed that he was a soldier in the Roman army who then deserted, and for that became enslaved. At the time, a slave who had noticeable strength was trained to become a gladiator. Spartacus, being this walking giant of muscle, got sent to a gladiatorial school where he was trained to become a heavyweight fighter known as the Murmillo. I'm sure you'd recognize this type of gladiator as the one from the movies that's always fighting the main character, but almost always never wins. If the movies have taught me anything though, it's that history is almost never accurately portrayed by them, because Spartacus was able to survive long enough to plot his own rebellion with his fellow gladiators. Spartacus and 70 other slaves within the school gathered kitchen utensils and used them to fight their way out and gather a bunch of weapons and armor. Of course, there was resistance from the Roman legions, but they were no match for Spartacus and his ladle. I mean, if I saw this guy and all he was carrying was a ladle, I think I'd be more scared of him than if he was carrying an actual weapon. Anyway, once escaped from the school, they plundered the nearby towns, freed and recruited as many slaves as they could, then made base at Mount Vesuvius. The Romans weren't entirely happy with this, but they couldn't respond in full force since they were dealing with another conflict in Spain. They sent over a militia to try to cut off Spartacus' resources and starve them out until they surrendered. However, Spartacus used his tactical knowledge to guide his troops around the backside of the mountain and around the enemy base,
this guy's
where he'd be able to annihilate their camp from behind.
At least he's a pretty good tactician.
The next militia that was sent over was also defeated, and this gained Spartacus some glory.
So
More and more slaves started to join his ranks until eventually his army numbered near 100,000 slaves. They weren't as skilled at fighting as the trained Roman soldiers, but they were useful enough to put Spartacus' plans into action. By using guerrilla warfare tactics to raid and sabotage the Roman legions, he was able to continue to defeat any oncoming attack. This allowed him to reach a crossroads. He could cross the Alps and put a massive wall of mountain between him and the Romans, essentially guaranteeing their freedom. Or he could turn his armies south and find safe haven somewhere closer to Rome. Both had their benefits and both had their risks, but before Spartacus could come to a decision, one of his co-commanders led an army of 30,000 towards Rome, where he would try to gather even more slaves to join them. Of course, this didn't turn out so well, and Spartacus ended up losing 30,000 men. The march of the rebels towards Rome was something that the Romans began to fear. The rebellion had been going on too long, and they couldn't afford to keep losing men the way that they did. They needed to end the rebellion swiftly.
I think it was
Now,
Crixus who
noblemen
led the
weren't
army
quite
to
lining
Rome.
up to offer their armies to fight Spartacus, because they'd heard what had happened to those who had attempted before them. The only willing person was Marcus Crassus, the wealthiest man in Rome. He was given 40,000 soldiers to end the rebellion. Now, to put into perspective how serious the situation was at the time, Marcus had to treat his soldiers so harshly that he reinstated a once banned form of discipline known as unit decimation. If a cohort of soldiers was to receive this punishment, they'd split up into groups of 10, pretty much draw straws, and whoever out of the 10 drew the short straw, they'd be stoned to death. What better way to build your army than to get rid of 10% of it every time they screw up, right? But hey, this harsh treatment must have worked though, because Crassus had begun to win engagements against Spartacus's armies. The loss in numbers forced Spartacus to retreat until they had their backs to the Strait of Messina, a body of water splitting Sicily and Spartacus's current location. Spartacus tried to make a deal with pirates to escort him and 2,000 other men across the sea to Sicily, but pirates being pirates just took the money and left. Spartacus had no other choice but to follow the coast south, with Crassus's legion following closely behind, constantly causing small skirmishes. At this point, the rebellion had gone on so long that the legions who were previously occupied in Spain had ended their conflict and were making their way back to Rome. They were ordered to immediately go and aid Crassus in finishing the rebellion. Spartacus heard that reinforcements were coming, so he tried to negotiate a way to end the conflict without any more fighting. Of course, Crassus, wanting all the glory to himself, refused, and this had left Spartacus with no choice but to turn his army around and face Crassus and his army head-on before the reinforcements arrived. In this final battle, Spartacus was killed, along with the rest of the rebellion, thus ending what's known as the Third Servile War. This left nothing but his achievements in battle to be remembered in history as the symbol of hope for all people who experience oppression. And that's Spartacus' story. Just a whole lot of fighting. So let's move on to his abilities and noble phantasm now. The first thing that you'd probably want to know is why, as a berserker class, is he able to talk? Because normally, the mad enhancement skill unique to berserkers should limit the servant's ability to speak. Well, Spartacus is an irregular type of berserker. He can talk, but he can't actually communicate. Everything he does and says only relates to the one objective that he has set in his mind. This objective isn't set by his master either. Once Spartacus sets out to do something, nothing will stop him. It takes 2 command spells to stop him from moving completely, but even when those wear off, he'll just continue exactly where he left off.
That's great.
He has a personal skill called Unyielding Will that embodies all the dedication that he has towards that one goal. It also gives him this extreme resistance to both mental and physical damage. Next, he obviously doesn't wear any noticeable armor, or any typical clothing for that matter. It's said that his body's toughness is hard enough to be armor itself and therefore does not need to be contained. Since during his countless battles he never really got injured, only scarred, his body is considered to be one that can't be pierced, giving him immense durability to physical attacks. As for his weapons, he fights with anything from his sword, Gladius, which actually isn't a noble phantasm, to his fists, which are strong enough to devastate servants that are physically weaker than him. Spartacus also sees no need to even dodge enemy attacks. He'll even go out of his way to be hit by them. It's because he has a sponge-like noble phantasm called Crying Warmonger, the Howl of the Wounded Beast. This allows him to absorb damage and store it as magical energy, which in turn heals him and makes him more powerful. The healing is attributed to a skill called Honor of the Battered, which constantly heals any damage over time. As we saw in the show though, if he's exposed to continuous damage from strong servants, his body will be transformed and extra limbs and tumors will begin to grow. He will continue to transform and store magical energy until he reaches a point where the damage he's received is enough to deliver a fatal blow. At this point, he would expel all the magical energy that he has in one blast, absolutely annihilating everything in its path. It made for a pretty cool looking scene when it happened in the show, so I think that if you've seen this episode, then you probably have a good idea on how this noble phantasm works.
Yeah.
And that's Spartacus, our 14th and final servant. With this, the Fate Apocrypha Servant Explained series comes to a close, with exclusion to the updated ruler and Astolfo videos of course. But I just wanted to take this moment to thank all of you for taking the time to help me grow this series.
3 servants.
Whether you've watched one of them, or all of them, or just even voted in the poll, the fact that you came to my video really means a lot to me. So as I always say, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll be around for when I start the next series. But until then, ciao!
Gotcha. Alright guys, Spartacus, man, like, his stuff wasn't really all that complicated. He didn't have that many abilities. He did have a few interesting ones though, like the one where he takes damage, absorbs it, and then uses it as strength where he can heal from any wound, and the extra energy becomes like extra power. So that's pretty nice. And then he stores that power until he can releases it into one big blast. That's pretty much what he's all about. He takes damage, heals, stores it, releases it. Pretty much. That's pretty easy to follow. Then I think, let me see. What else? Damn, there was one ability that he mentioned. Oh, it wasn't an ability. It's just like how Spartacus is a servant, how he works. And it's like once he decides to do something, like a master can't stop him. Like nothing can stop him. So this guy is a pretty horrible pick. For you to summon him in a Grail War, I think from all the servers that I covered, I think this one is the one that I would like the least. Just because like you can't stop him from doing anything. Even if you use command seals, you need to use 2 to just stop him from doing something. And as soon as those wear off, like you're back right where you started with only 1 command seal left and nothing left to do but to let him go. Like it's a horrible servant to summon. His attack potency though, it is big, and he is hard to kill. Like his durability and his healing factor is freaking on point, but like if you can't control your servant, I mean, it's like you summon him and hope for the best that he's the last one standing. Pretty much, like it's a horrible servant to cover. He did not mention anything though of him being able to be summoned as other classes, which is a damn shame. I'm pretty sure that's probably because Spartacus, I'm assuming after Apocrypha, has never been even mentioned again. So maybe that's why, but I do have the hope that if he does come back, hopefully he is going to be in a different class. So yeah, like hopefully he is able to be in a different class, and like I would love to see him as a saber, honestly, or maybe as a lancer, but as a saber the most, because he normally does fight with a sword. Sometimes he even fights with 2 swords, so that'll be awesome to see. But like I just wanted to see him as something other than a berserker, just because like this guy is smart. Like he's a great tactician. So I would say that he would be something like if he was able to be summoned as something else, he would be something along the lines of like Vlad, where he's like a great tactician, leads armies and whatnot, and is a great thinker. Like pretty much Vlad led the whole black faction. Was it the black faction? I don't remember the colors, but yeah, he led his whole faction. Like he was the one giving orders, telling them how to move. And then when he was forced to use that noble phantasm, it was like his brain was gone. Like he was no longer smart. Like everything was driven by bloodthirst and wanting to kill people. So that's like what Spartacus is like as a berserker. It's like his brain is gone. And honestly, I wouldn't care if it was like somebody else, but I'm like really passionate like about Spartacus. It's like how I would be with like Leonidas. But like with Leonidas, it was a better case, just because like Leonidas is like, yeah, he's funny and whatnot in like a party or like a social thing, but when it comes to fighting, like the dude is fierce. Like he's a good freaking servant, bro. And that's what I would love to see, something like that from Spartacus, where he's at least being able to I think honestly, if they still wanted to go the way that they did with the comedy route, I think Spartacus and Leonidas will be exactly the same. if Spartacus was able to be summoned as something else. Like, their personality will probably be exactly the same if they still want to go that comedy route. Sorry. So maybe, but I would love to see him like in a more serious tone and like really strategizing and whatnot. But hopefully he does come back in future Rare Wars. If he has, and I just don't know about it, please let me know in the comment section below. And I don't think he has though, because any news honestly didn't mention anything about that. But new stuff has come out after he made this video, so please let me know in the comment section below if like there's anything that I don't know about, if Spartacus ever came back, anything along the lines of that. But that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. And as I always say, guys, have an awesome day and catch you guys in the next one.